Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. So in this episode, we're going to talk about Chapter 2 of Book 2, The Council of Elrond. The longest chapter in book history. Might be a long one, so buckle up, bucko.
Chris, where's your hat?
It doesn't fit my head.
Oh, no.
What? Mine doesn't fit my head.
Yours is an erection on your head.
Aw.
I'm just very tall today.
He's just
Fine.
really happy to see you.
Wear the child size hat like the, not like that.
Oh, it doesn't fit.
Look, I'm really, CVS had one size.
I look like a Nigerian prince who's trying to email everyone to give his fortune away.
Take it off. So last chapter was chapter 1 of book 2. Frodo wakes up in Rivendell after being asleep from his wound for 4 days. He reunites with Gandalf and is surprised to find Bilbo there as well. After a great feast where he met many elves and dwarves, Frodo retires to bed early so he can be well rested for the early council the next day.
Nice.
Succinct, to the point.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah.
I love it.
So this is a chapter that discusses a whole lot, but doesn't actually, in terms of action, nothing much really happens. If you've ever been the reason for a meeting at work, you will empathize with what's going on. Everybody gets together, they have a chat, and we as readers get taken through a load of history and themes and a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of it we've touched on in earlier chapters, a lot of it's been alluded to, but to what you were saying, this is the culmination of a lot of things, including a ton of the world building that Tolkien's been like consciously dropping in as we go. Like the world as a place where magic and power are diminishing, where evil is growing, where we learn a lot about Aragorn's history and what he is heir to. And also water.
Once again,
water. Always water. Water, the eternal foe, but in this case, just an important geographic boundary. It's going to be part history lesson, part Gandalf explaining what the fuck he's been doing, and then some discussion about what to do. The chapter starts with Frodo wakes up full of pep, full of life. He's like, I'm going to go exploring those trees over there. I want to explore this valley. And Gandalf's like, hold up, we got a meeting to go to. Then the bell rings and they realize they're late for class and they book it. And Sam just kind of like follows on. So they get this council that Elrond has called. There's a ton of people at this council. He's got elves there. He's got his counselors there. He's got visitors. He's got dwarves there. He's got men there. There's Bilbo and Frodo are there. There's a wizard there, Gandalf. And Elrond explains that the reason he's called this meeting is because everyone there has come to him for advice, and it all relates to the ring. So he's got everyone in the same room. We're all talking about the same problem. So Elrond proceeds to explain that he's going to talk about this story that no one has heard in its full ever. Because this story's 2,500 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This story that Elrond is telling in this room is as old to Frodo as the Iliad and the Odyssey are to us today. It's like 2,500 years old.
Wow.
But what if you were getting that story told to you by someone who went on the Odyssey? By someone who was there when Troy fell? Because that's who Elrond is, because that's what comes out. Because he talks about the last alliance of elves and men. He talks about Isildur's bane. He talks about Isildur's heir. And to cut to the chase on a lot of that, a very long time ago, elves and men went to war with Sauron in Mordor, and against all odds, they fought him at the Black Gates of Mordor. A lot of people died, including Isildur's father, including the king of the elves, including a lot of very important people. And in the final moments of the battle, Sauron crushed the sword of the king of the Númenóreans, and Isildur, the king's son, took up that blade, cut off Sauron's hand, and separated the ring from Sauron's body, and Sauron was rendered powerless. His army collapsed, his power was gone, and in the aftermath of the battle, Isildur took this ring and he said, "This is what I claim for the lives of my brothers, my fathers, and everyone who died here."
Yeah.
And Elrond's like, "You should probably chuck it."
Back from whence it came.
But I kind of get where he's coming from. He's like, dude, I'm keeping this thing.
Right.
You killed everybody in my family.
Right.
This is mine now.
Right. But they hadn't quite killed everyone in the family yet.
Right.
Like a lot of places and things in this book, and it's going to keep happening, things have multiple names.
Yeah.
Because these stories are old and they're told in different parts of the world. They're told in different languages. So the One Ring is, I'm sure the elves have a name for it that they won't tell us. I'm sure the dwarves have a name for it that they don't know. But we know it as the One Ring, or also Isildur's Bane to the Númenóreans, to the men of Westerness, to like this royal line. The reason it's called Isildur's Bane is because a bane is a poison, is a thing that kills you. You know, Chris's bane would be eggs. Isildur's Bane is the One Ring because he took it, he tried to use it, and even though Sauron was destroyed, his armies were not, and they ambushed the remaining armies of men and killed everyone. And Isildur was like, whoop, I got a magic ring. I'll go invisible. I'll hop the river. I'll swim away. Everything is fine. He was in the river Anduin, which is essentially like the Mississippi River. It's enormous. It spans everything. He hops in. He goes to swim away. It falls off of his finger somehow. Mysteriously. And then orcs light him up. Stick him full of arrows and he's dead.
293 arrows.
In one man.
Wow.
That's really
or so
overkill.
they say.
I'm guessing. I'm
Maybe.
guessing here, but
I mean, my God.
But then the ring falls into the depths of the river Anduin and is lost for all
it's like a
time.
porcupine.
So that's why it's called Isildur's Bane.
The ring is, or the place?
The ring. The ring itself is known as Isildur's Bane. It's just another name for the One Ring.
Got it.
And the heir of Isildur is the royal line that came after.
Well, I appreciate you giving that recap because that wasn't in the chapter, and I completely forgot how Isildur lost the ring.
Right. This is one of those things that when the narrator, Tolkien, is like, yeah, Elrond talks about a lot of stuff that's elsewhere, so we're going to skip it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things he skipped.
Yeah.
But we have read this. We read about that 12 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's been a bit.
14 weeks, 13. It doesn't matter.
I have a
bit
very
ago.
bad memory.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Sauron was diminished but not destroyed because his power is tied up in the ring and the ring is tied up in his power. So if you can't destroy the ring, you can't destroy Sauron.
Yeah.
And
It's like Harry and Voldemort.
kind of, yeah. Like, I wonder where that idea came
weird.
from. So strange. But hey, you know what? Nothing is original, and I won't take that away from her.
It's fine.
There are way better criticisms of that writing. But when I say that it cost a lot, and when I say a lot of people died, out of everyone who left, all the men who went to go fight, only 3 came back. 3 out of the armies of the West. All the men they could find. Only 3 made it back to Rivendell to say what happened, which is why maybe Boromir's not familiar with the story and all the particulars of it. Because this happened again 2,500 years ago, and a lot of elves died. Because you'll remember Gil-galad, the song that Sam sang, Gil-galad was an elven king. This was his fight. This is where he died. Elrond was there. Círdan the shipwright was there. A lot of other very important elves were there. A lot of them are now dead. And so again, this plays into this theme of the world as a diminishing thing because elves, there's not really many more elves, right? They live a very long life. They don't have a lot of children. Orcs, I mean, they're like mushrooms. You leave them in the dark for a little while and you got too many afterwards. And men are like, they're doing whatever they do. But the point is that you had this last alliance of elves and men that was powerful enough to defeat Sauron. And even that, Elrond mentions, is not as powerful as the one before that. The one before that was the one that beat Sauron's boss. So it's this like downward trajectory. And the reason it's called Last Alliance, capital L, capital A, is basically because there's not enough elves or men left to do that ever again. It's why they settle on the strategy they settle on, because they do not have the strength of arms anymore to face Sauron, which is why him getting the ring. This is why the elves care so much anymore, is because if Sauron gets the ring back, there is no power in Middle-earth that can resist him physically. He will be as powerful as he was in the days of old when it took the combined might of the free peoples of the world to defeat him, and nobody's up for that fight again. And keep in mind, that's the context in which Tolkien is writing these books, right?
Yeah.
He's thinking about a world before World War I and the way things might have been, and there's always this sense of there were things about the past that were better. Things in the present can be better. There's always this sense that as time progresses, something is lost. And in this case, it's literally Elrond going, I can tell you what lost. I have a list. Most of them are my friends.
Oh, God.
So that's where Elrond leaves the story, kind of. And then, it's sort of a round robin after this about, like, why is everybody actually here? Because, again, Elrond brought these people together for a reason. And the reason is because they all have problems that are related to Sauron and the ring.
Even if they don't know it yet.
Right.
Right.
So the dwarves, Glowin is like, yeah, actually, speaking of the man himself, we came to you because we've gotten messages from Mordor trying to make a deal with us and saying, just like, tell us, like, what's a shire? Where's a hobbit? Where can I find this tiny little gold ring? It doesn't mean anything, it's just a trifle. Sauron doesn't really care for it. He just really wants it. I'll give you 3 rings of power from the dwarves and the 7 lost rings of the dwarves. If you can just tell me, point to the map where the shire is, and you can have these rings. Tell me where I can find a hobbit, and I will give you back the fallen kingdom of Moria. Just go ahead and tell me. And the dwarves have been like, you know what? I'm going to think on this for how long? A while. And it's been like a year, and Mordor is going to come back. So they sent Glowin to go ask the wisest person in the world, Elrond, how do we keep this going?
Which that gave me such anxiety because he said they're going to come back at the end of the year.
Yep.
Which I know their calendars are different, but
it's late October.
Yeah, it's late October. It's coming around the corner.
Yep.
Coming up.
To be clear, the stakes are if Sauron gets his ring back, everyone is fucked. Like, no question. And everyone is the dwarves, it's the elves, it's the men. Hell, it's even the hobbits now. It's everybody. But at some point, someone asks the very reasonable question that even Frodo asked at one point. Is this actually the ring? Like, we know Sauron is very interested in his ring, but is that it? Is this the one? Do you remember when Tom did his stupid street magician thing and Frodo was like, oh no, what has happened? Right? Tom again.
He's coming back.
He's back, baby. So how do we even know this is it, right? Well, context clues, right, guys? 1, the 9 are abroad. 2, Mordor is getting ready to really go full court press on the dwarves about this matter of what do you even know? Not do you have it, but what do you know about it? So it's out there, and nobody's really contesting that. But how do we know it's this one? Well, that was part of what Gandalf was up to. Is he was hunting Gollum because the idea was he's going to squeeze Gollum for information and verify. Right? You remember when they said they showed him fire and they alluded to maybe they tortured the shit out of Gollum?
Yeah.
Well, they probably did because Gandalf, allegedly. So halfway through this, searching the whole ass world for one slimy weirdo, Gandalf goes, there's got to be a better way. And he goes to Gondor, where he thinks that maybe there's some records that nobody can read anymore because, again, it's been 2,500 years. Maybe the rulers of Gondor have some records they can't read and they don't understand and they're sitting on it. Well, jackpot. He finds, and do you remember the fire writing on the ring in the first chapter? Gandalf finds that writing in a record in a scroll that's 2,500 years old.
From Isildur.
From Isildur himself. This is Isildur's Bane, the ring, and Isildur is making a memento of it, and he's saying things like, yeah, in case people forget this, I want to write this down. I think it's important. And he writes in this weird language, and Gandalf helpfully reads it out loud. And it's the black tongue of Mordor, and it's like, Ashnaz Ginbatul. It's all this shit. Like, the sun gets blotted out. The elves are their ears are bleeding. And everybody's like, ah! And Elrond's like, Gandalf the Grey, not once has that shit ever been spoken in my house. And Gandalf's like, yeah, and with luck, never again. But here we are.
Once again, it's serious. It's like him with the dragon fireworks.
Yeah,
he just doesn't care.
He just pushes just a little bit. So Gandalf has found a better plan than torturing Gollum. Well, unfortunately for Gollum, Aragorn actually found him eventually. and
yes.
took him into,
Poor Gollum.
led him on a little rope.
Aragorn's scary, man.
Aragorn even says, watching Gollum was a fucking chore, so I starved him until he got too tired to be a fucker.
Concentration camp
He
guy.
said it was the worst part of his journey.
Yeah,
But then he
was
kind
that
of gives him. He puts him in a
slimy little
rehab.
weirdo.
He does. Then they kind of put them into
Well,
an elvish rehab.
he gives him to the elves of Mirkwood for holding, and it's like, just keep an eye on this slimy little monster. And the elves are like, all right.
But not only that, they were like, Gandalf still has hope that he can be restored.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to do this crazy thing to bring him back, but then they're like, "There's just nothing in here."
Right. Well, that was the problem. Is that
Only fish.
The whole only
Fish and ugliness and hatred.
Holy fish.
Only fish.
Oh no!
You can
You can find me. I only fish.
Backslash Smeagol.
For 4 jewels a month.
Oh no. So, and it's funny because at that point, one of the other elves stands up and is like, "Hi, I'm Legolas. I'm here because I'm the son of the king of the elves of Mirkwood, where you left Gollum. We lost him." And he's like, "And that's all I got."
Right.
And he sits back down.
Doesn't open his mouth again.
Yeah, really, because apparently it was just like a jailbreak. Because the elves. Long story short, the elves. He probably stank, so they would take him on walks, and he would enjoy climbing trees and being weird. And then one day,
All part of the rehab.
enrichment, yeah.
They were trying to keep him not from looking down. They told him to look up.
All the way up,
It's like when you take your cat out on a leash.
and then it climbs a tree, and then it won't come down. And then before you can call the fire department, orcs come.
Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I understand why he didn't come down this time.
Right. Well, orcs come and they fight the elf guards, and they're all murdered, and Gollum disappears, and it's very bad. And Legolas is just like, sorry. Also, Mirkwood ain't safe anymore.
Oh God.
Oh no. Well, okay, so actually it's funny because they talk about how birds can be messengers and spies, and this comes up in the chapter also.
Probably a squirrel.
But fish. No, here's the thing. I just imagined it. It was like, sure, you could send a bird as a messenger to Gollum, but if it got close enough, he would snatch it and put it in his mouth.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, hey, I'm here to... And that's it. That's the message.
Yeah.
I don't think Gollum's getting our messages.
And it's just like, he's just like crunching something, and the elves are like, what do you have in your mouth? Drop it, drop it, drop it. And
It's like a dog.
Yeah.
Drop it!
It's like birds screaming in the black tongue.
Oh my God.
Oh, jeez.
Give me
And he was starved, so he would shut up.
Yeah.
So, I just see it as the squirrel was finally the one that outwitted him, didn't get close enough.
Oh, yeah.
Delivered the message and then trotted away.
From another tree.
Yeah. You ever
yeah,
see...
just was leaping.
Have
The
you ever...
squirrel ran up and he was like,
Bigo.
Smeagol. Save yourself.
Save yourself. Oh, no.
Have you ever seen...
Bigo, no.
Have you ever seen like a hawk hunt a squirrel in a tree? And it's like the squirrel will be on one side of the tree, and the hawk will like flutter to a branch, and the squirrel will run as fast as it can to put the rest of the tree between it and the bird, just over and over again, until one of them gets bored or the squirrel dies. And I imagine it's like that, but the whole time the squirrel is screaming like, you need to pay attention. On Tuesday.
I'm trying to tell you something.
At 3 o'clock, you need to be outside.
I'm only trying to help.
For some reason, I heard the squirrel's voice as Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm trying to fucking tell you something.
stop trying to fucking grab me.
The fuck is wrong with you? So the point is that Mirkwood is no longer a safe place. It's bad. There's orcs running around. Gollum escapes. Hey, we fucked
And
up.
Mirkwood is a forest where the elves.
Okay,
Some
so
of the elves
Mirkwood is a forest in the north.
Okay.
It's like the biggest forest in the world.
And now it's evil.
Now it's mostly evil. It's always been a little evil.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which makes sense after meeting everyone from the old forest. You're like, that makes sense.
Oldest forest is worst forest. So it's bad in Mirkwood. It's bad everywhere. One of the men at the council is Boromir, son of the steward of Gondor, the kingdom of men in the south. You know how we talked about how Aragorn is sort of the heir of a fallen kingdom of men in the north? This is the southern kingdom. There were two.
Is it the same line?
Yeah, they're
Royal
both
line?
Numenorian. They're both very old, but the one in the north fell
Yes.
long time ago, and the one in the south is not doing so great
Why?
Wow.
because it's directly across the street from Mordor.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It was founded as a kingdom with basically 3 fortresses after the war. When they finally buttoned up Sauron, they put one fortress right on Sauron's doorstep and called it Minas Ithil, the Tower of the Moon. Minas means tower.
Yep.
Then there was Osgiliath, which was their capital in the middle, right on the Anduin River, right on the Mississippi, basically, a little further west. And then further west of that is the westernmost stronghold. The last line is Minas Anor, the Tower of the Setting Sun. Well, when Sauron came back, first thing he did was kill everyone in Minas Ithil. And now it's called Minas Morgul. So when you asked about what Morgul means, it's the city of the witches. It's the city of the Nazgul. It is Minas Morgul, meaning
The Tower of Sorcery.
right.
Ooh.
So it's a bad fucking place.
Okay.
It's not good. Guys, if anybody talks about magic in any context, it's always bad. like Gandalf is a wizard and no one says that nicely.
Wow,
Think about that.
interesting.
Think about
Yeah.
that, right?
Because everybody who does magic's kind of like super evil.
Right.
And he's like, "Hi, I do magic," and they're like,
Do
Let me show you a
elves
firework.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even the elves, do the elves do magic or are they just weird? Like, you know what I mean?
"Is there a
Like,
difference between doing magic and being magical?"
I don't think so, not necessarily. I mean, there's probably like a mechanical difference to them. Like an elf probably would like, I'm washing my hands, or like you're doing
Is
whatever.
there a difference between doing good deeds and being a good person?
That's probably it, right?
Yeah.
But nobody who does magic is probably a good person
In this time,
in this time, because like essentially what's happened is just to kind of like tie this up real quick, everyone who used to be able to do magic is dead except for Sauron, basically. Like all of the other great ringsmiths, all the other great powers, no one has outlasted Sauron because Sauron has been this recurring evil, and if you fight him you generally die.
What about like the Council of the Wise? Aren't they all wizards?
They're just
Saruman.
powerful and wise individuals. Because part of Tolkien's world is that elves are these like, they're superhuman. Like they're stronger, they're smarter, they're wiser, they live longer, they're healthier. They're
Because
just,
they were made in the god's creator's image, kind
right,
of.
right. They were the first. They are the eldest. Therefore, they're the best. As an eldest child, I can confirm. The Numenorians are the eldest race of men
Okay.
that are still around, kind of.
Okay.
And then you have like the people of Bree and like the kingdom of Rohan and a couple other places they talk about. These are lesser men.
okay. So Numenorian, to be of Numenorian blood, means something
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but there's not much of that left.
because that's old.
It's
And
old.
the Rangers are the descendants of the Numenorians.
Yes.
Correct.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
So
And they even they have like darker skin and darker hair. They can blend into shadows. They're different. They look different. You know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
tell.
Just making sure I got
taller.
this sort of figured out in my head.
yeah. So it's like it's
There's a
it's-
lot going on here.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a ton, and to bring it all back to like the Tower of Sorcery, first thing Sauron did was kick them the fuck out of Minas Ithil, and now it's Minas Morgul. Beat them out of the country around that area called Ithilien. It's all. And so then suddenly they'd lost everything. They, meaning Gondor, had lost everything east of the river, and then there was a long war there. And Osgiliath, their capital, was abandoned, and now it's a ruin. And so the men of Gondor have been pushed further and further and further and further and further west. And Boromir even says, like, before I hit the road to come here, we had just gotten like blitzkrieged out of our easternmost outposts. We were overwhelmed. And it was so bad, Boromir says, that only 4 people came back. Boromir, his brother, and 2 other randos swam the river. And that's it out of the whole army.
Dude,
Wow.
they got messed up.
They did. And around that time, Boromir's brother started having dreams. He had this reoccurring dream. And even Boromir had the same dream at some point. And the dream is about a voice, basically, that comes out of the west. And it says, Seek the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken much stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand. For Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand. That's why Boromir's here. He's here because
It's a riddle.
it's a riddle. They have no idea what to make of it. They are up to their eyeballs in shit, and Elrond is the man to ask. And it turns out the sword that was broken, that's Narsil.
Sitting at the table
That's-
with you.
That's Aragorn's sword. That's the sword that was broken.
That's the one he pulled out
Yeah.
at the prancing pony.
Yeah.
Yep.
The prancing pony. And it was broken.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was one of the few things that came back with the army of Numenorians back in the day. That's Isildur's sword. That's the sword of the house of the line of kings.
So that's like a broken sword that's been passed down through generations.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's also never left Rivendell because it's a broken sword.
Well,
What are you gonna do
because
with it?
the heir of Isildur immediately went to Rivendell and was raised by the elves, and
Yeah.
each
Okay.
generation of that family has been raised in Rivendell.
Right.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So it explains like why, for example, Aragorn's heart dwells in Rivendell. Otherwise, he's just kind of a wanderer in the wilderness.
Right.
But this kind of ties him back to that.
In that song, it says Imladris.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
It's Rivendell, so it's the
Okay.
Elvish word meaning deep valley. It is once again it comes up that we're talking about things, and there's several different languages.
Why
being
so many
said.
names?
Well, he's a linguist.
The man,
confusing.
the man wrote this book for a world, so he would have a world and a story for his imaginary language to inhabit.
It's so confusing.
He loves this.
Yeah.
He loves
Although
this.
I noticed, I look at the map a lot in the back, and a lot of things do have two names.
Yes, they do.
Very clearly, like the elfish name, and then
So yeah, if you
Yeah.
do your research, he gives you the little
I have
breadcrumbs
a
to figure it
confession to
out.
make. How many chapters are we in? 14?
Yeah.
We're 14 chapters into The Lord of the Rings. I have not yet looked at the map.
I thought it was like critical for this particular chapter
Oh.
to understand where like Gondor was.
I'm
versus
sure it would have been great.
Mordor. It
I just
was very
Didn't-
helpful.
We're going to do some quizzes.
Oh, good.
It's going to be map quizzes. This will be fun.
Lisa's giving you some warning.
Yeah.
So Boromir's got this riddle, and he doesn't know what the fuck to do with it. And Elrond and company are like, well, nerd, Imladris is here. The sign of doom and the token is Isildur's bane. And we got some halflings right here. So good for, you understood the assignment. But what to do with that, we don't know. And this whole time, Boromir has been like, because this has been a very long conversation that goes a lot of different ways. It's not really presented well in this discussion because it goes back and forth 1,000 times. But Boromir is constantly banging the drum about how Gondor is the defense of the West. Gondor's the only thing between the world and Mordor. No one helps Gondor except Rohan, but that's it. And
They get no thanks.
no thanks. Nobody cares. Nobody nothing. And now you got this, and it's like when Aragorn is like, and this is Narsil, Boromir's like, well, who the fuck are you? And so Bilbo has this little poem, the one we're familiar with, the all that is gold does not glitter, not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes of fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king.
It was in the letter from Gandalf to Frodo.
Yeah. And it's like, and he's basically pointing, he's like, and that's Aragorn, asshole.
Shut up.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Shut the fuck up. No one asked you.
And it is, that's it. He's like, give me a sandwich.
Yeah. He's like,
Yeah,
Bilbo,
he's getting angry.
He is.
he's angry, dude.
yeah. So and Aragorn piggybacks on that and is like, yeah, okay, cool. You absolutely hold the line on the Anduin. You absolutely fight the war against Mordor that is constant. The Dunedain of the north, the northern line of kings. We are not nobody. We don't rest. We spend every day hunting and killing monsters. Like these guys are the people who are out in the dark fighting evil where it lives. Because
The woods and the hills.
Gondor has
Yeah.
obviously some very courageous fighters.
absolutely.
But they guard the city.
right.
Like the front
Correct.
line.
And
yes.
evil comes to them, they slay it, and they guard and continue to guard. The other is the Dunedain.
The Dunedain.
Seek it out.
Dunedain is men,
They're hunting.
Yeah, they are the Numenorians.
the Numenorian men. Dunedain. They're actually out in the world fighting the evil on its own turf.
Yeah, I think he actually says, like, if Butterbur knew the kinds of things I had to kill within walking distance of his front door, he'd shit himself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love
Yeah,
how much
like,
Butterbur
he also calls
came
him
up
a
in this
fat man.
council.
Yeah, he's like, there's a fat man in this little town called Bree. And as soon as he said that, I hate to say it, I knew who he was talking about.
Yup.
But I have to say, I love how infamous he is in this world. Like all these different, kings and rulers and messengers of all the different peoples of the Middle Earth are together. And as soon as they say that fat man and Bree, everyone's like, Butterbur.
It goes to show you that somebody's physical appearance can be quite memorable.
What's amazing to me is that as far as the council is concerned, Butterbur is the second most famous person not in the room.
Right.
And the first most famous is fucking Tom Bombadil. Yeah. And we'll touch on that in a second. But Aragorn and Boromir have this tit for tat, and it goes back and forth because
I love this art.
it's great because it sets up their entire dynamic, right? Because Boromir is a man who has seen shit. He has been fighting wars. He and his brother fight. They lost an army. They are watching their kingdom get beaten back one bloody step at a time. And he's come here looking for help. And Ding Dong waves a busted sword at him. And he wants to know why. And he wants to know why. Also, if they have the ring, they have the one ring. They have Isildur's Bane. Why aren't they using it? It's a weapon. It's power. And everyone in the room kind of looks at each other and goes, not it. Because if a normal person were to try to wield the ring, it would do to them what was going to happen to Frodo. They would just become like a weird little ring wraith. It would not be good. And if it was one of the wise, capital W, when these like magically empowered like wise people like Elrond or Círdan the Shipwright we heard about, another elf lord, he's important.
Or Gandalf.
Gandalf specifically.
We know.
Or anyone else, they make the point that it wouldn't change anything except Sauron's name because that person would become Sauron. The ring is that corrupt.
Yeah.
So you would just have a different flavor of Dark Lord. And he's like, okay, then what? And Gandalf's like, well, we'll get to that. Because Gandalf talks. And we find out where the fuck he's been this entire book. Right? Story time. I told you that story to tell you this story. I will keep this super short.
Will you?
As short as I can.
Shorter than his hat.
It's the tallest hat in the room. I get to talk. So anyway, Gandalf's story is because Gandalf is like, I have some stuff. We're going to fill in some blanks here. And also, when we talk about powerful people who want the ring, we should discuss an important part of my background because Gandalf's been searching the world for signs of stuff. He's been hunting down leads. He's been trying to figure out what's going on. When a different wizard named Radagast finds him. And Radagast is this like Radagast the Brown. He's a sort of like, he's more interested in woodlands and animals and that kind of stuff. Not so much people, way more into birds. And he's like, I just talked to Saruman and he's looking for you and you got to go talk to him like right now. It's super important. Gandalf drops his shit and runs.
He tells him that the nine are out.
Yes. And he's like, you got to go and you got to talk to Saruman, not Sauron, Saruman. And he is the wisest wizard in the world. And you guys are going to figure this out. And then Radagast fucks off at full speed. And he's just gone. And so Gandalf does the same. He goes straight to Orthanc. He goes straight down south to the Gap of Rohan, which is this kind of gap in the mountains where Saruman has this crazy tall tower that he lives in. Mm-hmm. And when Gandalf gets there, he talks to Saruman, and Saruman's like, hey, bud, are you with me or against me? What do you mean? Against me it is. Because Saruman wants the ring. He is the wisest in ring lore, is what Gandalf talked about like 12 chapters ago.
Yeah.
The Saruman knows a lot because he's been researching it. And even Elrond is like, yeah, there's nothing good will happen to you if you delve into that knowledge. For good or for ill, it's going to fuck you up. And it fucked up Saruman. Mm-hmm. Because Saruman imprisoned Gandalf, which is where Gandalf spent a lot of time, on top of the tower, and he would have stayed there for God knows how long, except one of the things that Gandalf asked Radagast to do was, hey, all your bird friends, all your animal friends, send news to Orthanc so Saruman knows what's going on. So, like, these birds are coming by and dropping messages, and instead of eating them, Gandalf listens to them.
Yes.
And
Smart.
And as he's, he's spending his time pacing around trying to figure out what the fuck is he going to do, he's looking down off the top of this impossibly tall tower, and he notices that, like, Saruman has an army of orcs now, and wolves and monsters, and it's like, oh no, he's building an army. Oh no, he wants the ring for himself. Oh no, my boss is the new bad guy.
And
And
new
then-
number 2. Gotta
Yeah.
watch out for those.
There's number 2.
Well, that's what Sauron was originally, was
He was number 2.
someone you don't know yet's number 2.
And so eventually a great big eagle, Gwaihir, king of the eagles, comes down and is like, I got a message for the boss. And Gandalf's like, better idea. Let's get the fuck out. And Gwaihir is like, I came here to bear messages, not burdens, but okay.
Sassy bird.
Right.
What a great line.
I will
that
carry
is.
your fat ass where as far as I can. Turns out that's to Rohan. It's not very far at all. So Gandalf hops a bird, goes down, finds that the king of Rohan is like also not really in great shape and doesn't really want to like receive him and doesn't want to talk to him, and says, just get the fuck out. Just do whatever you want to get the fuck out. You know what? Take a horse. Get the fuck out of my lands. Rohan is famous for the quality of horses they breed. And so Gandalf, like an asshole, chooses the best horse in the world.
That has never been ridden before by a man.
Never been ridden before, talks to the horse, makes friends with the horse, and then boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
And they Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, and they ride to the Shire. They ride to like Bree in like 4 days. It took Boromir walking a portion of that distance 110 days to get from Gondor, which is pretty further east, up past Orthanc, bang a right, go north to Rivendell. He was on the road for 110 days.
That's insane.
That's too long.
That's like 3 months and then some. And meanwhile, Frodo's like, it's been 4 days. I had to walk for some of that. So Gandalf gets to the Shire. He gets to Bree, and he's ready to murder Barliman.
Oh, yes.
He's ready to murder Butterbur.
Our old friend. R.I.P.
And he's going to murder him until he got the good news, which is that Gandalf was in Bree the night after Frodo was.
I couldn't believe that.
And Frodo was like, he was off in the wilderness with Strider at that point. And Gandalf was like, well, I ain't going to find, if Aragorn doesn't want to be found, I ain't going to find him. I'm going straight to Weathertop, which is what Aragorn said Gandalf would do.
Yeah.
Right?
But because he's got a horse and because they got little legs, he got there first. But do you remember that weird lightning storm they saw at dawn, and the reason everything was burned out is because when he got there, the Black Riders, the Nazgul, the Nine, the Ring Wraiths ambushed him there. Not all of them, but most of them. And Gandalf spent the night like throwing lightning at them.
Which I would love to see that.
Right?
It's like a light show.
It's like a rave.
Yeah.
Wizard rave.
It's
these
just
shadows come
sandstorm
forward.
playing, and he's like,
The system is down.
So Gandalf fights them until
just
dawn.
German EDM kicks on.
And then he runs for his life because he's like, you know what I can't do? I can't do that again. And he's like, you know what I'll do? I will draw them to Rivendell. And he does. And that's the only reason that when the hobbits and Aragorn finally arrive at Weathertop, there's not 9 ring wraiths waiting for them
Yeah.
because they were busy chasing down Gandalf. And then we kind of know what happens after that. Gandalf runs straight ass to Rivendell and is like, guys, this is what happened, which is why Glorfindel and 4 other guys got the news to like ride in every direction, find these guys, do what you can. And that's what precipitated the events at the Flight of the Ford and all the rest of it.
Interesting. Okay.
So like this is where we get all the background information, because the thing to remember is like we haven't like, I mean, we have seen stuff that is outside of Frodo's perspective, but truly all the action of this story really happens within about 30 feet of Frodo. Like that's what we know. as readers. So now we get all the backstory.
All the pieces of the puzzle start to come together in this chapter.
Yeah.
And and now everyone gets all this information at the council, and they look around and they go, so what now? And they're all like, well, Glorfindel's like, well, we can't fight Sauron head on. And we can't hide the ring, because if we drop it in the bottom of the sea, Gandalf's like, you don't know what's down there. You don't know. Also, that doesn't solve anything. Sauron is still Sauron. And even without the ring, he's fucking everybody up right now.
Just prolongs the inevitable.
So they really need to solve this problem. Elrond is like, we could have done this 2,500 years ago. But who wants to listen to me? I'm just the smartest guy on earth.
Fucking Isildur.
They do. They go back and forth. And they're like, well, we can't hide it because that didn't work. Obviously, Gollum found it. And now we're in this problem. We can't fight Sauron. That's been a point that's made over and over and over again. Is there's just not the strength.
They can't wield it.
Right. They can't wield it against him. It's not a weapon that they can use. They can't fight Sauron and beat him toe to toe. What can they do? Well, we can destroy it. Well, again, we can't fight him. So what the fuck do you mean destroy it? And Elrond's just like, we put it in the fire, dummy. The fire, capital F, meaning the volcano, the cracks of doom that it was forged in by Sauron, the mountain that is in Mordor. And he's like, we'll just walk to Mordor. Someone's going to go. And everybody's like, that seems pretty insane. And he's like, well, right. But logically, if we can't use strength to destroy the ring, we need to use something else. And stealth is pretty good. And hobbits, I didn't see this happening. In a million years, I would not have guessed that a hobbit would have found it and a hobbit would have brought it, and also that they would have lived. I don't. So maybe Sauron won't know either. Maybe this is fine. But also, the powerful, because Glorfindel made this point last chapter or 2 chapters ago, he can't do that. He's like a beacon in the night to these monsters. If he goes anywhere, they can see him in their nightmares. Like Elrond, the same. All these powerful people, it's the same. If they go anywhere, they will be noticed immediately. And Bilbo is like, enough. I've heard it. I want to go to lunch. I started this. I'll finish it. When are we leaving? And Boromir's ready to laugh in his face. And then he notices like everyone else is super serious about this. They talk him out of it. And they're like, Bilbo, no. Your part is over, man. You wrote your story. You wrote and lived happily ever after. Give it a shot. And then Frodo has his third line of the entire chapter. And he says, I will bear it, though I do not know the way. Or I will take it, though I do not know the way. And everybody's like, I guess that's the logical conclusion here. And then Sam is like, well, hold on, you're not going alone. And everybody's like, the fuck are you doing here?
You were not invited.
Oh, look at you, uninvited. and Elrond is kind of like, well, I guess if you're here, you're going. And then Sam looks at Frodo and is like, well, now we're in it.
He's like, now we're in a pickle.
Yeah.
He's like, so
I hope
cute.
you like pickles, because we're in one. Sam popping out was fun.
It was fun.
Really, Sam's character arc, like he really truly is getting just set up to be the hero of the story.
It was very reminiscent of when Gandalf reached through the window and grabbed him and pulled him in.
pulled him in without his will.
And Sam's
And
like,
now he's-
I was listening. I heard everything
But now
you
he's
said.
willingly putting himself in and saying, I will go on this journey.
Sam is really inserting himself into the most dangerous things imaginable.
Yeah.
And kind of just for giggles.
And Tom Bombadil taught him to have no fear. So he's like, I will get us there.
Right, and we did talk about Tom Bombadil a little bit in this chapter.
And we will talk more because there's a lot to say once again.
yeah.
I hate to say it because you're probably going to kill me. You're going to want to kill me for saying this. But
If you say it's boring, I'm going to pull all your teeth out.
not a lot happens.
That's not okay.
Not
Okay.
a lot happens.
Correct.
Not wrong.
But a lot of information is presented.
Yes.
And it's a word vomit of lore.
Pat, what did you call it? The prologue part 2?
Yeah, it's prologue part 2.
Prologue part 2. It's real, you know.
Yeah,
It's
and some people believe like everything's a prologue until this chapter. This is where the story truly begins.
sure. I mean, well, this is where the action, comes to a fucking screeching halt, and nothing happens. So in that way, we have begun Act 2.
Well, we're filling in the gaps. We're
Yeah.
figuring out
Exactly.
what's going on.
Yeah.
It's my
Exactly.
favorite.
So there's a billion things to dive into. The first thing that really stands out to me when we were reading this chapter, the first thing that kicked off in my brain is Sam is referred to as uninvited and, for the moment, forgotten.
Right, because that's when the bell goes off and they're like, oh, we're late for the meeting. And they book it and Sam's like, well, I'm here, so I guess I'm coming.
Yeah, and I just...
It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was so
It was sad to see him go back to where he began. You know what I'm saying? Like Bilbo pops up and once again, he's just forgotten, uninvited.
You're not important.
Right.
RJ and I today, we went for a hike. And on that hike, we hiked about 5 miles. And while we were on the hike, we were talking about the chapter. And we were like, hey, that's so funny that Sam was kind of like disregarded. And like, is it fair? Is it not fair? And I was thinking about, okay, well, he just spent the last like 2.5, 3 weeks, basically, however long it's been, every day with Sam. And so when Sam was like, oh, I guess I'm just going to hang back, Frodo was probably like, oh, fucking yeah, chill. It's an hour-long meeting, or maybe longer, and I'll get back to you soon. Like, it's.
You think Frodo was sick of Sam?
I don't think he was.
He
sick
had a
of
great
Sam.
point. No, I was the one that was like, that's so messed up. I thought they just got close. I was so devastated. I was bitching because I was like, how could Frodo do this? And then Chris was like, it's like when you go on your trips.
Yeah.
And you're with the same people for weeks and he doesn't see me. And there's a chance for you to hang out with me, AKA Bilbo he hasn't seen in 17 years.
Yeah, I'll
True.
spend 2-3 weeks on the road at work with like, my crew, which I'm friends with. And I get home and then like 2 days later, there's like a friend function and those same friends are going to be there.
You just saw him for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm here to talk to other people. And so I just imagine after all this, like,
I love that perspective.
I think that this is really brave because those people listen to this podcast.
No, but it was good to put that in perspective. All joking aside, like I never thought about that. And it's like, yeah, he hasn't seen his beloved adopted dad figure in 17 years.
But Sam also wasn't invited to the council.
Right. They invited the ring finder and the ring bearer, not the gardener.
And it's not like Merry and Pippin were like, why weren't we invited? We should be listening too,
Also,
It's just
no
Sam.
mention of Merry and Pippin the entire chapter.
Gandalf
We don't know if
probably
they're there.
They're
and
off
I'm
in like
just
a
kidding.
hot
They
tub
are there.
somewhere.
no. Gandalf drugged them just so they slept late.
Oh, Pippin's sleeping in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. So the other thing I want to bring up, which is it happens right after, and I had a question for everybody, and maybe I just missed it, but so far we've heard the term the Misty Mountains. That's been brought up in a prior chapter. At the beginning of this meeting, something was brought up, a place called the Lonely Mountains. Are the Lonely Mountains and the Misty Mountains part of the same mountain range, like on the map? Is it different mountains? Are there a lot of mountains?
So that answer has two parts. First part is if you looked at a damn map, you'd know. Secondly, no, the Lonely Mountain is this like one mountain. Like it's all off on its own.
That's why it's lonely.
Yeah, that's literally the name. It's also called Erebor in the books.
Since not all of our listeners have access to a map, in
Right.
solidarity, I
Right.
choose to not look at it.
So in the far
Thank you,
northeast,
Chris.
in the northeast, you have the Lonely Mountain. Then you have Mirkwood, and then as you travel further west, you have the Misty Mountains. And then you also have the Blue Mountains. There's dwarves in the Blue Mountains. And Mordor has two mountain ranges, the Mountains of Shadow and the Mountains of Ash. There's also the Gray Mountains in the north. In Gondor, there are the White Mountains. These are all distinct mountain ranges. The Lonely Mountain is way the fuck out all by its damn lonesome. That's
It's
why
on the
lonely.
other side of Mirkwood.
Yes. That's where Glowin, the dwarf, comes from. That's where
And Glowin has a son.
Gimli.
This was not brought up in the summary. But we can discuss this now real fast.
Yeah.
That Gimli is the son of Glowin, right? And who's Glowin again?
Glowin is one of the dwarven companions that Bilbo had when he went on an adventure to the Lonely Mountain to kill a dragon. And along the way, he found the One Ring.
Got it.
He turned some trolls into stone.
Yep. And that is the entirety of The Hobbit. For those of you who have not read.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you should read it.
I feel like it got very confusing very quickly when they started discussing dwarf lore.
Yeah, it was. I've read The Hobbit, but I can't remember the finer details. so maybe that's where it is. But they say that in Moria, they awoke the nameless fear. And I have no idea what that means.
Oh, you will.
Should I?
You will eventually.
All right,
Stay
so you
tuned.
can't tell me now
Nope.
because it'll be a spoiler. But Moria is like a cave system.
Moria is Khazad-dûm, is
Not helpful.
one of the great dwarf kingdoms of Middle Earth,
Okay.
but it's a ruin because
They dug too deep.
and too greedily, and they
sun.
something evil awoke, and Moria was lost. But one of the two reasons that Glowin came to the council is because one, they don't know what to tell Sauron's messenger who keeps knocking on the door saying, "Hey, are you going to tell me yet?" And the other thing is Balin, one of the other dwarves who accompanied Bilbo, took some folks and went to Moria to like reestablish it, to explore it, to find one of the lost dwarf rings that Thror had, who is Thorin's grandfather. And Gandalf is like, no matter what happens over there, they ain't finding that ring.
Why? Do we know what happened to them?
So one of the reasons that Mirkwood is not a great place anymore is because for a long time after Sauron was defeated, he lived in Mirkwood, in Dol Guldur, and he was known as the Necromancer. Nobody really knew. They knew there was a weird wizard / sorcerer doing bad shit. Nobody knew it was Sauron. One of the things that Gandalf was doing in the background was exploring that. And one of the things that, and to tie this back to dwarves.
I was like, what does this have to do with the rings?
Well,
tie
that's you had to tell a story to tell
Oh
the
my
story.
God.
Yeah.
And to bring this all the way back is that one of the things that Gandalf found in the dungeons of Dol Guldur was Thror the dwarf, who is Thorin's grandfather, who's one of Bilbo's companions.
And Thorin only makes sense if you've read The Hobbit.
Right. But that dwarf, who was found in the dungeons, had one of the rings of power.
Okay.
Yes.
And
So Gandalf found a ring of power.
he found out what happened to it because Sauron recovered it.
Sauron found it.
But
as the necromancer.
Okay,
But
so Sauron took it.
Yeah. So, but the point to put a bow on this real quick, when Glowin says, "Yeah, they went to Moria to reestablish Moria." To refound the kingdom and also to look for the lost ring of Thror, Gandalf was like, okay, maybe on the first one, definitely no on the second.
Right.
And then explained why.
Okay. Tell us about the Kings of Power.
Go ahead and explain that.
All right. So the funny thing is, everybody has a good understanding at this point that I'm reading basically a counterfeit book. My book I bought on Amazon was not published by a professional printer because every other fucking chapter has a misprint in it. And the misprint of this chapter happened at least 27 times. Every time that the ring,
Capital R.
ring, capital R was brought up, it actually
Proper
was
R.
changed to a K. The king. So
The rink.
The rule.
No.
Lord of the Rink.
Lord of the Rink. There was Lord
That
of the
truly
King.
is. Wait, that truly is the Christmas time ice rink production.
But it was like the ruling king.
Like evil river
or
dance.
the Lord of the Kings.
Wait, my favorite was when he was like, he took the king for himself. I was
he
like,
took the king for himself. The kings of power.
The one king.
and to
Which
remind
changes the whole book when you think there's kings of
I
power.
was just hung up on he took for the king. Isildur took the king for himself.
Ooh.
This was
Fingering
his
to the
price.
king.
Wait, this was his
the
price.
king fell off his finger.
The burning ring of the king was soon put out
No,
by
when
a
he
finger.
said, "This is my price. I will take the king of power." I was like, "Oh,
Ooh.
this is a weird
So-
turn of."
where the fuck were we?
So the
Okay,
ring. What
so
are the
the
rings?
Let's talk about the
okay, So
rings.
ring lore. Okay,
There's 20 rings.
Very quickly to everybody's point here. Right, the 3 rings are really the ones we're interested in, right? Because the 7 rings went to the dwarves, the 9 rings went to men. Sauron made his 1 ring in secret to capture everything. But because the same kind of magic was used to make the elven rings as to make all of Sauron's rings, including the 1 ring, if Sauron gets his ring back, he will have power over the 3 elven rings of power.
That's a problem.
Yes. And in the chapter, Elrond talks about the 3 places of power that could possibly resist Sauron for even a minute. And it's Rivendell,
Okay.
it's Lorien, which is
Lorien,
an
okay.
elven kingdom that we haven't really heard much about.
Okay.
And also the Grey Havens, where Círdan the shipwright lives, way out west. And one of the big fears of the elves, because again, why do
This
elves?
is Elrond's opinion.
Right.
These are the only 3 places that can withstand Sauron for at least a minute.
Right. And also, we're not going to talk about where the rings may or may not be. Shut the fuck up. But I mean, you can kind of put one and one
It's very
together.
high schoolish.
Kind of.
Like, hey, you got a perfect grade. And he's like,
But he kept a secret for 2,500 years. And I'm sure you don't do that by not killing a few people.
Yeah.
But one of the elves' major fears that they bring up is that if Gondor should fail, there's nothing to stop Sauron from marching his ass along the coast and in the south and then coming north, conquering the Grey Havens. And one of the elves at the table is like, and then at that point, there's nowhere and no way for the elves to escape the waning light of Middle-earth.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's how they get the fuck out. That's how they go back to the Undying Land. It's like a physical ferry, like it's a train station that you go to.
What is?
The Grey Havens.
The Grey Havens. Okay.
So it's like it is a
it's like a train station.
Yeah, if like there was an elevator to heaven that you had to go to, and it was like in Georgia,
And it was lost.
right?
I had another question. There was a word brought up called weregild.
I had to look that up.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That is an Old English word.
I had never heard that word before.
That
neither.
is the price you pay for killing someone.
Really?
So it was like when Pat was saying, "I will take this for having my father and brother killed." That was the weregild.
Yeah. So Isildur took the One Ring as basically payment as spoils for the
Spoils of war.
spoils of
Right.
war for having lost his father and brothers.
Okay. So if there's 3 rings that are for the elves, the dwarves lost their rings. The elves, they're good at keeping records. So I'm assuming they still have theirs. Who are the 3 elves that have theirs, and what do they do?
So we haven't yet found out who possesses those 3 rings. And we will find out later in the story, so I don't want to spoil anything. But the 3 rings are for making, healing, and to preserve all things unstained.
And understanding.
Yes.
4 things.
Everyone up until this point, when Frodo got injured, was like, we have to go to Rivendell. He has to be seen by Elrond. The whole last chapter was like, he's been healed by Elrond. He's this master healer. And in this chapter, every time the rings of the elves get brought up, Elrond's like, shut the fuck up. We don't talk about the elven rings. Don't bring up that I healed Frodo. He's like being very secretive. And I'm like, he clearly has the elven ring of healing.
I can't
So
believe I've
Elrond
never put
healed
that
him?
together. Yeah.
Yeah, in the last chapter.
But because of the ring, Elrond has a ring.
Maybe.
So when Glorfindel rides up, he tries to heal him and he says, I did as much as I can. We must take him to Elrond.
Yeah, so like none of this is explicit. This is all implied. This is RJ putting stuff
Implied.
together.
And I'm not saying I'm even right. And maybe I'm just leading you down a wild goose chase. But I just read that and I was like, oh, interesting. Because I didn't remember
Connecting
this.
the
I mean, I
dots.
haven't read this in 20 years. So when the decision of the council, Elrond and all these elves and these people present say we have to destroy the ring, the elves admit that when the one ring has gone, the 3 elven rings will fail. And many fair things will fade and be forgotten.
Yeah.
And then they say they are willing to endure this chance to end Sauron, which I think is so beautiful. These beautiful, powerful, great beings are like, we are going to sacrifice ourselves from history of this world. We're going to go to the West and never be coming back. We're going to be forgotten in the times of history, probably. Hopefully we'll be remembered. But we've had this power. And they feel such guilt, which we kind of talked about, how Celebrimbor and all these people, their greed of learning more power with their magic and their wielding of rings, kind of taught Sauron how to create the One Ring. They're like, this is what we need to do for this world.
What RJ just said ties perfectly into one of the huge themes of Tolkien's work, which is that things are fading. Elves are fading. Magic is fading. Every step forward is a step away from the old days. So the idea that the elves want to move forward by diminishing themselves is exactly on theme.
That's very selfless.
Do you think that Tolkien was writing this kind of under the guise of like Sauron is just like adulthood?
Industrialism.
Yeah, industrialization.
Like you're sort of losing the magic of childhood and stories and lore, and sort of just becoming a grown up. And
It's more
and
nature
sort of meh.
versus.
Culture. Civilization.
It's he Tolkien is a man who appreciates natural beauty and can appreciate also what industrialized anything can do to a world, and how once you undo certain things, you can't redo them. Like you can't just replant an ancient forest. You can't just rebuild a country.
Yeah, it will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're always
A
going to
hole
lose
in the
something.
ozone layer.
On one hand, there's the greed of Sauron, the power, and like in general, greed and power is
Mm-hmm.
so negative. And then there's Tom Bombadil, who's just the joy of nature and the simplicity of everyday life. Having his wife take a bath and make a meal, and he has so much power, but that is where he wants to be. Like they literally say in this at the very end, like he couldn't take the ring because he chose a small corner of the earth. And he's just saying, this is all I want to do. I won't do it.
Not only that, they do bring that up, right? When they discuss like, okay, well, if we can't give it to a powerful person, you said Tom Bombadil's not affected. Like the elves have a name for him. They know who he
And I
is.
love his name.
Really? I can't even pronounce it. I don't
I mean,
even try.
I don't think I can. It's Larwen Benadar, and literally it means oldest and fatherless. And Arwen means old young in the Elvish tongue.
Oh.
He also has a name, I think for the
Dwarves?
was Forn.
Yes.
And then somebody else calls him Orald.
Oh, Númenóreans also use the Elvish tongue name for
But we call him Tom.
Bombadil.
Tommy B.
Now, I know he was briefly brought up in the synopsis,
No,
but
he was discussed. Like I didn't bring him up in our discussions because frankly he was a dead end. But the reason for that is because they said like, oh, he's super powerful. He's not affected by the ring.
unless such power is in the earth itself,
Right.
he can't have any power. Like he doesn't have power over it. So the ring is of something else.
But they also said like
Let's hide it with him.
the man does not give a shit.
Forget about it.
He will lose it. It's literally meaningless
It means
to him.
nothing to
Not
him.
my circus,
Not
not
my
my monkeys.
Yeah, that's like when you see
That's his opinion of the ring and all of these affairs.
What the
Honestly,
fuck was that?
when something not my
never
circus,
heard
not my
that?
monkeys.
that's a very famous.
Like when there's some shit going on and you get to look across the hall and be like, oh, that office is on fire. Those people are out of their fucking minds. Ha! Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yeah.
Not my problem. And that's exactly what he did. He would probably tie it to a squirrel and be like, good job, buddy.
I just like how Tom is just waiting this whole thing out in his little safe, carved out area, and just like, this too shall pass.
And that is one of my favorite quotes of the entire chapter. Last as he was first,
Yes.
then night will come. Like he's going to be the last being of this Middle Earth before everything ends. The creator's like, well, I fucked up.
I also really like that
Oh, I
quote.
love that there was and somebody online you had said commented about Tom Bombadil. It's like he was like his opinion of Tom Bombadil is that Tom Bombadil was created so that this like creator god would have someone to witness what he had done.
Which is brilliant. It's so funny.
And I think that's awesome.
I like that.
Yeah, I've actually we've really enjoyed. We read all the comments. We talk about all of them. We really loved your input and what you're getting out of our little discussions. It's been really great to see your opinions too. So we do read them and we do discuss.
Your
them.
opinions make Pat's hat stand up.
And it is very tall. Although wait, I can fix it.
It excites him, and you can see.
I'm
But let's go back to some quotes that I didn't like.
because real quick,
Oh, yeah.
I just for the people who are only listening, I want to explain that I bought I went to CVS and I bought Santa hats for everybody for $2.99 a piece. They had one size. Apparently, it was toddler. We're wearing these cheap Santa hats, except for Chris, whose head is simply too large.
Fat head.
And
The
mine,
largest head in Audubon. That's where we are right now.
but
It's Audubon.
I decided that I didn't want mine to be floppy. I wanted mine to stand straight up.
There you
I
go.
like
So it
it.
does.
Good. As I said, one of my favorite lines of the chapter.
Can't or
Laura, you
won't.
had a line you absolutely despised, right?
Yes. And Pat touched on this during the summary, which cleared up a lot of the questions in my mind. But I was getting really worried when, our good buddy, the author Jert, was was talking about the race of the Númenóreans.
Okay.
And how the blood of the Númenóreans was becoming mingled with that of lesser men. And I was like, whoa, What are we? Are we doing a superior race thing here? Are we doing a
Classism.
royal bloodline
Yeah.
here? But then after I had those thoughts and wanted to discuss them, Pat mentioned that it's more of like they were blessed with a sort of a magical gift.
Yeah, there was a group of people, the Numenorians, who did something in the distant past, and they were rewarded for that with basically by being made stronger and more long-lived than normal men.
Right.
Which is part of the reason that the last alliance of elven men is totally fucked, because the Numenorians are not really around anymore. You have people who are descended from them but are not as powerful as them.
So another moment I want to talk about is when Saruman is revealing his true self to Gandalf. And he says, white cloth may be dyed, the white page can be overwritten, and the white light can be broken. In which case it is no longer white. And he that breaks a thing to find out what it has left the path of wisdom. And it's just this wild moment of you're like, oh shit, like he is becoming evil. And this man who is the ultimate scholar of the Ring of Power and of Sauron
The most learned in the ring.
The most powerful wizard.
has now, the student that set out to defeat this thing has become obsessed with it and has fallen under its power and now has turned.
Yeah.
And it's just such a crazy moment in the story because you're like, oh shit. This person that was supposed to take him down has now joined him.
Did they establish that it was his original goal to take down Sauron? Because he's been real squirrely the whole
Well,
time.
he has been squirrely. When Elrond when someone's like, where is Saruman? He is the expert in this matter. This should be his counsel. Like he should be here.
Yeah, he's
it kind of
misled
infers,
people.
in my opinion, the way I read it, that he has been just devoting his life, his power, his wisdom to this. And it sounded like he was kind of being the one that's like, this is the plan. This is how we take it down.
So yeah, so the wise, the council wise, everybody's kind of against Sauron, right? Sauron is like the old evil, and one of the things that you're talking about, like this is the plan. We're going to slow roll this. Saruman has been slow walking everything to deal with Sauron for a while, because when they actually went to Dol Guldur, when they went to go fight the Necromancer, after they found out it was Sauron, even Saruman was like, well, hold on. Maybe we don't know. Maybe it's not so bad, whatever. And then they actually they waited so long that even Elrond was like, it's too late.
Yeah.
And then they finally fought him and oops, it was too late.
Yeah.
So Saruman for a long time has been like,
Withholding information and
Yeah.
misleading the other wise,
Yeah.
whatever wizards.
yeah.
He's
Is that
kind
the
of
great-
a cocksucker if you think about
Huge.
it.
It's such a great
cocksucker.
And he
betrayal.
revealed himself to Gandalf.
Yeah.
It's such a great portrayal, and it's like so disheartening. And Gandalf, he's like, "There's still hope." Like, is losing hope. Like, he's like, "This is pretty bleak."
But he has an amazing quote.
Yeah, that's actually I was trying to softball that. So I know you want to talk about it.
Yes, he has this most amazing quote that I loved. Despair.
Tell us about it, Gollum.
Laura makes that face at the worst times.
I love you, but you just went, and it made me think of that.
That's her excited face.
What do you want? I get excited sometimes. I'm not a human being.
My precious.
Despair. All right.
That's Laura's intrusive voice.
Yeah, it is. This is when the intrusive thoughts come out. So Gandalf's quote, which ties right into that.
Yeah.
Despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. We do not.
Ooh.
Who can see the future, right? Nobody can. So he's saying, do not despair. We don't know how it's going to end.
That's come up a lot, right? Because Gandalf said that to Frodo. And he was
Yeah.
like, hey,
We don't know how this is
chill
going to
out,
end,
buddy. We don't know what's up. And even Elrond is like, yeah, I didn't see hobbits being here, so we don't really know what's going to happen.
This
So-
seems like the best option because it's so unknown.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay if I jump into something that is really my heart's going about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Can we talk about Butterbur?
Let's talk about Butterbur.
Yeah. Okay.
Because my dude, Butterbur, rest in peace, baby.
He had a
dead.
he had a fucking
He's alive,
awful-
but he's fucked. He's dead. He's dead to Gandalf. He was basically set up like to be MVP of the season. And he blew it all in the World Series.
and in like the course of 36 hours, all of the consequences of his actions arrived
Yes.
all at once.
He was like, listen, I'm going to send the hobbits on their way. And you know what? In a couple months when Gandalf gets here, We'll figure things out. We'll talk it out. We're old friends. He knows me. And the next fucking day, Gandalf shows up. And Butterbur drops to the ground. We're not worthy. Like Wayne's World. We're not worthy. Just fucking.
If
he's
this delay was
screwed.
his fault, I will melt all the butter in him. I will roast the old fool over a slow fire.
Yeah. And which, by the way,
We were not wrong.
props to
Yeah.
us. We were right about that. We said that he's going to put him on a thing and put him on fire and rotate him and with the apple in
Gandalf
his
has
mouth.
one move.
Well, also remember, they actually did that to Gollum.
Because fire
yeah.
works.
And Gandalf loves fireworks.
Yes.
But that's one of my favorite themes of this book so far is that so he was set up to succeed and he failed. And Fredegar
Yeah.
was set up to fail and he succeeded. And we're constantly being led on this journey.
Who was?
Fredegar.
Oh, Frediger.
He was
Yes,
left
yes.
behind at Crick Hollow. You think he's left for dead. And that little hobbit, something rose up inside him. He said, "Not today, motherfucker."
Fatty's on the way.
And he saved that entire town.
And he ran for his life.
Yes. And so this little hobbit,
Very Mrs.
you know,
Doubtfire of him.
completely blew everyone out of the water. It was like, oh my God.
I just remember the scene where Robin Williams' tits are on fire.
Because Gandalf showed up. But you know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
like you think Butterbird's gonna like save the day. He doesn't. This little hobbit you think's gonna fail succeeds. It's really a cool theme in this whole story of
Yeah.
we're constantly led down this path of this will never work out. And it actually ends up doing it. And the strong, burly men of fantasy that usually are the heroes are not.
Yeah.
We were talking about Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax, and when I was reading it, I thought Radagast.
Oh no.
And I was confused because I thought Radagast was Shadowfax, but it's actually a different
The
person.
syllables align.
It's a different person completely.
They rhyme.
Well, to be fair, anyone who's seen the movie is going to be confused about Radagast. He doesn't appear in Lord of the Rings, but he does in The Hobbit, which we won't go into. But fucking Peter Jackson did Radagast dirty, and that's the first criticism I have of the guy. Because he presents him as like some kind of weird hippie, like fucking lunatic in the woods.
Yeah.
Radagast is just a wizard who gives more fucks about animals than elves.
Yeah.
I hate it. That's all I got to say.
Well, Radagast seemed to be very helpful in Gandalf's story
Yeah.
when he explains sort of like
Yeah, he lures him
where
into
he
a
comes
trap.
from. Yeah.
Yeah, he was so helpful.
But also,
He didn't realize it was a
Yeah, I
trap.
was just gonna say
He didn't know he was being
he wouldn't be there if it
manipulated.
wasn't for Radagast. But also, I don't know, Radagast is just trying to help.
I just have to say one last quick thing about Shadowfax. I love that he was never ridden by a man before. Gandalf is like, this is the horse I want. And then they become besties. I love at the end, he was like, we parted ways, but I know if I called him, he would come to me once again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. It's like when you meet someone, you're like, if I invite him to a party, he'd come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like humble bragging at the council, like, I made this horse my bitch. It's fine. We're cool.
Yeah,
They do that
exactly.
in
No,
it's like Breath
I
of the Wild.
I had a different perspective on it. It's like every 13-year-old horse girl's dream. It's like, I went to horse camp and I saw the wild black stallion that no one could ever ride and I tamed him and we love each other forever now.
Oh, I love
my
that.
gosh.
And also, you are half Rohan, so that fits.
Okay. All right.
I
half
see it. Definitely.
Hobbit, half Rohan.
Yeah.
Rohan.
That is
Oh, Rohan.
so
I
sweet.
said it like a hick. I'm so sorry.
I just copied you.
I know you did. I led you astray. I was the fool leading a fool.
You,
It is Rohan. Yeah.
You guys are so cute. Anyway, I just thought Shadowfax was just such a fun character. I don't even know how to describe him. Gandalf basically is like, oh, this badass horse I found and rides faster than any horse on Middle Earth. And
He's
it's
definitely a 13-year-old horse girl.
all right, fine. He's a horse girl, fine. But I thought Shadowfax was so good that he fucked up the whole timeline.
He did. Yeah, Gandalf went hundreds of miles in 4 days.
Yeah, like literally, whoop, whoop. Like
I have a
this
quick
horse
thought.
is going 90 miles an hour.
Did you
Like-
just solve the Council of
22 hours a
Elrond?
day.
Yeah, 22 hours a day.
Should Shadowfax just have the ring in a leather bag on his saddle and just have him ride to Mordor?
And they just launch him off a ramp.
No. And then he just like kicks back and his saddle bag just falls into the fire and he just rides out.
He's like the
Or he
Kool-Aid
could
man. He's like,
sacrifice
oh
himself.
yeah, burst into Mordor.
Chris, I think you just found the easy way out for the Lord of the Rings.
You just
love
find the
it.
dumbest falcon in Middle Earth, and
This
you
is
have
when it would've been
Radagast.
one
I
book.
love it. I love it.
Shadowfax just took care of it.
My vision is the Atlantic City diving horses that dive into the water. Just
But it's
put the
lava.
ring onto Shadowfax and just whee!
Holy guacamole. All right. What's next? What do we got?
I think this is the last note because it's one of the last things that happens in the chapter. They've been talking repeatedly about how hungry they are and how close it is to lunchtime. And when they're like, okay, somebody needs to take this ring, Frodo's like, I'll do it. You think he's just really hungry for lunch? And just wants
think
that
so.
fucking meeting to be over?
I have another
Oh my God.
I have another theory about that. So earlier in the chapter,
Side-eye moment.
when Gandalf and Elrond and all these powerful wise are saying, no, we can't take the ring, we can't use it, whatever. They're like, it corrupts the heart. It destroys the person. It makes them a terrible blah, blah, blah. Frodo's just sitting there like, what the actual fuck? Like, no one's actually said that to him. They're just like, no, I mustn't. It will make me a wraith. I'll be evil. My heart will look like whatever. And he's just
Frodo's like, it's in my pocket.
at one point, at one
20
point,
years.
at one point,
They're
he's
like, God forbid I touch it, or I shall
and
turn
it's like on
to
his
shadow.
skin. It's on his skin. He's like, what the fuck? And then Aragorn stands up and goes, you take it. Aragorn's like, no. He's like, fuck. So as soon as everyone stops arguing, he was like, I will take it to Mordor. I don't know where it is. But get this the fuck off me.
Although I love that right before that happens,
He's
I
like,
lo-
I'm done.
I love that right before that happens, Bilbo goes, I guess I'll do it.
pick me.
Yeah, and you're like, Bilbo, shut up.
But it's like your
You're
adorable
100.
grandfather that's like retired. And he's like, fine.
No, come on. It's awesome though. Like he's like, I got one more in me.
I started
Let's
this,
just
I'm
get
gonna
it
end it."
done.
He's gonna
like,
warm up his
"All
body to even stand up. He's like, let me get moving. Frodo just has a flashback to the last time he saw him with the ring. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, he can't handle it.
Yeah, seriously.
You know.
And then he's like, oh shit, that's gonna be me. I will fucking go.
Yeah, Frodo's
right
like,
now.
how do we fix this now before I turn into an evil scrotum?
Yes.
Well,
Made of fish.
I think it's really interesting because we end this chapter after we've heard from the dwarves, we've heard from the elves, we've heard from men. We have Gandalf, we have Glowin, we have Elrond, we have Boromir, Aragorn,
Glorfindel.
Oh, Glorfindel. We have all these badass mofos. And yet Frodo Baggins is willing to continue the journey to carry the greatest weight of the world that Middle Earth has ever seen.
Right after he said, I hope my journey is done now that I've arrived at Rivendell.
It's the Council of the Wise, right?
Yeah.
It's like the only decision they made that day was that the children will continue.
Yeah.
Alternatively, is Frodo just literally the least informed person at the table, which is why he's willing?
Yeah.
But not only that, the ring like pulls on greed. And at this point, Frodo isn't taking the ring for glory. He's not taking it for power. He's taking it to get the fuck away from him.
He is cursed.
He's taking it to end it because he's just done. He's exhausted. He wants to just go back to the Shire in his good life. He has something else to live for. He doesn't see that as the thing like Boromir is like, I need this to win. Frodo's like, I need to get rid of this to go back to my beautiful life in the Shire. And that's the difference. Everyone else could have a purpose to try to use it or to have like become under its sway. And I think that's the difference is that he doesn't need it at all.
Absolutely.
So he needs to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
So he will be the one to get rid of it.
Honestly, at this point, I'm still Team Frodo. He's bringing on, there's a lot of negative shit here. I feel almost sad at the end of this chapter.
Well, I know one thing that will
despair.
make you not sad.
What?
A nice treat. A little Christmas chime treat.
right. We got treats.
Yeah. Don't despair. There's always treats.
There's always treats. I'm full of dick. So that about wraps up chapter 2 of book 2. But before we go on to our food for thought, I just want to say, let's have a little toast
Two.
to Merry Christmas.
Merry Pippin Christmas.
Merry Pippin Christmas to some of my best friends on earth.
Yeah.
We love
And the best co-hosts a host
Aww.
could ever ask for. And to everybody celebrating any holiday today, I hope you enjoy it. Let's have a nice little...
Cheers.
Here we go.
And cheers to all our listeners and watchers. Thank you so much. We enjoy all of your comments and participation. This is for you too.
Absolutely.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
I just want to say...
Always continue.
That's what you guys did to me.
All right, and now it's our surprise.
And they said, and then another thing, and I was like,
Well, we all get to say something, Chris.
On the count of 3, prepare yourselves for the Council of Elrond. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my god!
hey.
These are gingerbread men, for those who are listening, each decorated to be one of the members of the Council of Elrond.
All right, I'm gonna guess that's Sam.
Yeah,
he's
'cause
actually not in the circle.
Because he's the only one frowning.
And he's not.
Oh.
This has to be Frodo because he has the ring.
He has a little gold ring.
I think next to him is Glowin. Right?
Pat, what's your take?
That's Glowin.
No, because
Glowin sat next to Frodo.
At the feast, not at this.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, I don't know though, but there's
What other
only
dwarves were there?
there's only a couple of beards, and
And
one
he's
of them
short.
is angry, and that's got to be glowing.
That's Gimli because he has the Gimli's axe.
but he's not angry.
But look,
What
there's
do you
an
mean
axe.
he's not angry?
He's got.
There's an
This
axe.
one is angry. This one isn't.
Also,
Oh,
this
no.
would be a really fun game for those who love Lord of the Rings like us. Have someone bake cookies as characters.
Oh my god!
And do a game of who
Okay.
can guess them.
So now what? Do we eat them?
1, Laura, may we eat these?
Yeah, of course. They're for
2,
eating.
choose your favorite person at the Council of Elrond, pick them up, and you're going to consume their body.
That might make it a little different. I'm picking Aragorn.
Can we give a little
Cookie cheers.
little
gotta switch
cheersy,
hands.
baby?
Yeah.
Ready?
Chris really needs to eat some dwarf ass.
Let's give a cheers. Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoyed this
Wait, did
episode.
you just purposely say Merry Christmas from Chris?
Merry Crimbus.
Merry Christopher.
Oh my god.
There he is.
There we go.
There it is. We're friends.
Yay! Fuck you.
So this is the new fellowship moving forward. It's Gandalf and Glorfindel
Glorfindel.
and Gimli and
Headless horseman.
Aragorn.
you already ate yours.
Aragorn without a head.
And now we're going. Okay, sure. These cookies are amazing.
What is it? It's not cinnamon.
It's gingerbread.
Gingerbread.
There's cinnamon in it.
That concludes our wonderful Christmas special. What a wonderful time this was. Wonderful. Wonderful.
He's trying to choke himself to death.
Jesus Christ. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and enjoying this. This has been an amazing Christmas special. Again, I have no fucking idea how long this is going to be, but thank you for sticking with it because it's definitely longer than our normal hour-long length.
It's a lot of fun, guys.
Cookies.
And during this holiday season, I hope that you look up and find and read Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien, where he writes letters to a girl as Santa Claus. And they're so magical. They're in his own handwriting. They have his own illustrations. They're so joyful.
Yeah, like what if Father Christmas, like Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus, you wrote him a letter and said, "Please, sir, I would like my little brother to have a train," and he wrote back to you the history of steel production.
They're a little more fanciful than
That's a
that.
gift, I suppose.
But I wish I could include that in this behemoth of a chapter. We did not have time, but just look that up.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Yule.
We'll see you next
Happy
week for
holiday.
New Year's Day. New Year's Day, we got a new episode coming out. We'll see you then.
Happy holidays.
What's the next chapter called?
The ring goes south.
The Rain Goes South. This is Full of a Took podcast. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Good night.
Pippin Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Hey!